Hello all, welcome to new Simply Put series by Kalam Academy. This is Priyanka Mahapatra, faculty at Kalam. So today we'll be having a discussion on the newspaper dated 23rd November 2023. So the articles which are displayed in the text and the context section of the Hindu newspaper are: first is Haryana's employment reservation law, which is very important from our exam point of view, that we'll be going to discuss. Other articles like US Rwanda deal and the ethics and the epistemology of the ancient Indian materialist are unimportant from our exam point of view, so we won't be discussing them. Similarly, in the explain section of the Indian Express newspaper, a very important article is being displayed, that is about the Ghol fish that we are going to discuss today. So importantly, four articles we are going to discuss. First is about the Haryana's employment quota. Second is about the Ghol fish, that is the state fish that is declared by the Gujrat government recently. Then about the rare metal which is found in the Satluj, Tantalum, and about the COP28 summit. So let's get started. So the first article about the Haryana's employment reservation law is important from GS paper 1 perspective, GS paper 2 perspective. And why this was in news? Because recently Punjab and the Haryana High Court, it quashed a law enacted by the Haryana government in 2021 that provided 75% reservation to the locals in the private sector in Haryana. So this was in news, and regarding the bill, it has said that local candidate is the one who is domiciling in Haryana, and it makes mandatory for the employers in the state to reserve 75% of the jobs having a monthly salary of less than 30,000 rupees. So basically it is catering to the low wage jobs, and it is making mandatory for the employers to reserve them for the local residents in the state, and it is applicable to all the private entities in the state, including companies, trust, societies, partnerships, and LLPs. And therefore, the central or the state governments or the organizations owned by the center or state remains outside the ambit of the act. So here the question is that have other states also enacted similar laws, or it's only Haryana for the first time? No, other states have also come up with similar laws providing reservation for their local residents in the private sector. For example, Maharashtra is extending reservation up to 80%. Karnataka and Andhra Pradesh, they are extending up to 75%, and Madhya Pradesh up to 70%. But in most of the states, these laws are, however, not being implemented. Why? Because the companies, they have refused to lower their hiring standards, and due to the absence of proper enforcement mechanism, the laws are far from implementation. So let's now understand what is the stand of the Haryana government and why it has come up with such law. It is saying that the law which has come up is very much under the purview of Article 16(4) of the Constitution, which says that the right to equality in public employment cannot stop the state from making any provision for the reservation of certain class of people, certain backward class of citizens, which in the opinion of the state is not adequately represented in the services under the state. Again, it is also saying that it is trying to address the challenges posed by a large number of migrants which are moving into the state every year competing for low wage jobs and thereby impacting the local infrastructure of the state. So it is having the stand that it is providing the employment to its local residents of Haryana and also promoting the industries there. It is saying also that the law is up only with the consent and consultation of the industrialists there. So these are the points which the Haryana government is telling about why it has come up with such a law. Again, let's now understand the reasons also for striking down the law by the Haryana and Punjab High Court. So the first reason is that it violated the Part 3 of the Constitution. So Part 3 of the Constitution, it envisages fundamental rights for the citizens. Here citizens mean both employer and employee. ठीक है, from employer perspective, Article 19(1)(g) of the Constitution is getting violated over here. So what is Article 19(1)(g)? It is the employer's right to carry on its occupation, trade or business across India. And due to the restriction created by the Haryana government, Article 19(1)(g) is getting hindered. Okay, then the private sector jobs also, they are very much skill oriented and they require the analytical bent of mindset from the employees. So these demands are also not met, and they are also scared of lowering down their hiring standards in the process. So this is how the employers' rights are getting hampered. Again, from the employee perspective, the Haryana government is treating the non-residents as second-class citizens due to the discrimination created between its residents and non-residents of the state. Then again, employees have the fundamental right to work in any part of the India, and due to the artificial wall created, due to the hindrance created, due to the restriction created because of the local quota, their fundamental right to work in state of Haryana is getting violated. Right? Again, very important reason that Article 35, it bars the state from legislating on domicile reservations in the employment, because this is the exclusive purview of the parliament according to Article 16(3) of the Constitution, which is equality of opportunity in matters of public employment. So the Article 35, it bars the state from making any laws which is in the purview of Article 16(3) of the Constitution about the public employment, right? Again, this law is amounting to Inspector Raj kind of situation in the state. Why? Because the private employers are being put under states' whims and fancies on whom to employ and whom not to employ. For example, Section 6 of the Act, where it provides that the employers to submit quarterly reports with the details of local candidates employed and appointed every time, right? Then it is also amounting to the policy of sons of the soil concept, where the government is discriminating against the individual simply because they do not belong to that state or they are not born in that state. So in this way, it is creating a fundamental wedge between the persons domiciled in different states and in that state, and thereby it is contrary to the concept of common citizenship envisaged in our constitution. So the High Court is saying that this kind of situation, this private quota, is creating an artificial wall throughout the country. And this wall could not be built around by the state that defeats the spirit and the soul of the oneness of the Constitution. So the Constitution of our India has always envisaged the oneness through its various provisions like common citizenship. So these are the major reasons due to which the High Court has struck down the law. Let's now move to the second article of the day, where the Gujrat government has just gotten its state fish, the Ghol fish. This is important from our GS paper 1 perspective, the culture part, and also from your prelims perspective. So why the Gujarat government has adopted the Ghol fish as its state fish? So what are the reasons for that? Because clearly of its commercial value, because of its economic value, and because of its uniqueness. Here, economic value means that it is a very expensive fish. It is often referred to as sea gold. It is often referred to as fisherman's lottery, because this fish actually becomes a lottery for fishermen who manages to net it, because a kilogram of ghol fetches around 5,000 to 15,000 rupees in Gujarat, and its dried version is even more expensive, that goes to 25,000 rupees, and in some cases it goes to 5 lakhs rupees, that costs more than a car. Okay, so it is known as the black spotted croaker or the goldfish, and it's scientifically known as Protonebia diacanthus. So you need to remember these facts from prelims point of view. Again, you need to also know the location where in India it is found and where across the world it is found. And the status, it's a rare fish, you have to remember from the prelims point of view. Okay, so because it's a rare fish, it becomes the Gujarat motto to take this as a part of its conservation efforts. So you must have understood by now that whichever species are rare and they are threatened in their status, in their IUCN status, those species are being adopted by various states to be a part of its conservation efforts. Okay, so coming to the location, it is found along the coast of Gujarat and Maharashtra in India, and across the world it is found in the Indo-Pacific region that stretches from Persian Gulf to the Pacific Ocean. Okay, then I was talking about different states adopting different threatened species, like Assam has adopted one-horned rhino, and West Bengal has adopted fishing cat, which enjoys the vulnerable status according to IUCN. And again, there is a fun fact that the Hilsa crisis in early 2000 that saw the overfarming and soaring prices, it motivated both Bangladesh and West Bengal to adopt the Hilsa as its conservation measures that included bans on fishing and price regulations. Right? So this is how it happens. Let's now understand the metal tantalum here, which is the rare metal found in the Satluj River sand in Punjab. So it was first discovered in 1802 and it was named after a Greek mythological figure Tantalus. So Tantalus was the rich and the wicked king of a town named above Mount Sipylus in Anatolia. Okay, so it has atomic number 73. It is already existing in our periodic table. Then about its properties. So from the exam point of view, you have to remember the properties about the particular metal. So it's a gray, heavy, very hard metal and one of the most corrosive resistant metals, you know. It is ductile in its pure form. Ductile means it can be stretched, it can be pulled, it can be drawn into thin wire or thread without even breaking. Okay, then it is completely immune to the chemical attacks at the temperature below 150 degrees centigrade. But it can be attacked by hydrofluoric acid or acidic solutions containing fluoride ion and free sulfur trioxide. So you have to remember these facts from the prelims point of view. These can come in statements about the metal tantalum. Then again, it is having extreme high melting point that is only exceeded by tungsten and rhenium. And about the usage of this metal, it is majorly used in the electronics and semiconductor industry because the capacitors made from tantalum are capable of storing more electricity in small sizes without much leakage, which makes it more appropriate to be used in the portable electronic devices like smartphones, laptops, and digital cameras. So these are the points you should be remembering from the prelims point of view. So where it is used again, it is being used as a substitute for platinum, which is an expensive metal because of its high melting point. Okay, because of the high melting point of the tantalum, it is being used as a substitute for the platinum. Okay, then it can be also used as a components for the chemical plants, the nuclear power plants, the aeroplane, and the missiles. Again, it is also used in surgical equipment and implants like artificial joints because it doesn't react with the bodily fluids. Okay? Then also a composite uh, of both tantalum carbide and graphite, they make the hardest material possible, and that is why they are a part of the cutting edges of the high speed machine tools. So these are the important points you need to remember from the tantalum perspective. So let's now come to the fourth article of the day, that is COP28 summit is coming, and have we lost the fight against the climate change? So this is important from your GS paper 3 perspective, which says about the conservation, environmental pollution, degradation. Okay. So on November 17th this year, we got a report that said that the daily average global temperatures have exceeded the pre-industrial baseline by more than 2 degrees Celsius for the first time. So this is a very startling fact. And as a routine matter, during this time of the year, we get these startling facts every year, ahead of any annual COP summit on climate change. Various reports they come out assessing that where do we stand in the fight against climate change. Okay, and just like every previous year, the situation appears more grim this year and the progress more marginal. And you know that the emissions are still rising and there is not enough money to deal with such a worsening climate situation, and such harmful effects of the climate change becoming more apparent day by day. So what is the way ahead? Okay, so let's now discuss more about it. Let's now understand clearly where we are standing in the fight against the climate change according to the various criterias. So we have a target in front of us, but we are not following that. We are just deviating in the various criteria created. So under the emissions criteria, there is a requirement, and where we are standing, we'll see that. So the requirement is that the 2030 emissions must be 43% below the 2019 levels. But we are not following that. As usual, the emissions are still rising. In fact, they have never shown a decline except the year 2020, that is a pandemic year. And as of now, 2030 emissions likely to be just 2% below the 2019. So you can see the disparity, what is being required and what we are achieving, 43% to 2%. Similarly, in case of adaptation, there is a requirement that at least $215 billion per year needed to be funded towards the adaptation projects in developing countries. But in the current status, barely $21 million per year is flowing now. Okay, in case of loss and damage, an estimated $100 billion per year required to help countries hit by the climate disasters. But in the current status, no money is flowing right now. Okay, and in case of finance, again, an estimated tens of trillions of dollars per year needed to facilitate all the climate actions. But in the current status, even the modest promised flow of $100 billion per year has not been materialized. And in case of temperature, there is a target that we need to hold the rise within 1.5 degrees Celsius from the pre-industrial times. But we have breached for daily temperatures. The annual averages likely to be breached in the next 4 years. So this is how we are performing in the case of climate change crisis. So these points you can note it down and use it directly in your mains answer whenever a question has been asked in this context. Again, you must understand here that the small island states, they are being threatened by the rising sea levels all the time. They would want to build certain infrastructure in order to save themselves from the climate change crisis. They would want to build sea walls. They would make their infrastructure more resilient. They want to set up early warning systems. They want to invest in temperature resilient agriculture or water resources. So all these require huge funds, but there is no flow of funds. In fact, the rich countries agreed to double up the money going towards the adaptation projects by 2025. That is from $20 billion to $40 billion in the Glasgow Climate Conference in 2021. But actually, what is happening? It has been declined by almost 15% last year. So how will the small states survive here? So in such a situation, the poor and the weak would be suffering the most. So we can conclude easily as of now, seeing the situation, that if it is about meeting this 2030 emission reduction target consistent with the 1.5 or even 2 degrees Celsius pathways, the fight is as good as over. Even historically, no climate target has been ever met. But again, there are still possibilities of a pullback through various technological interventions like carbon dioxide capture, carbon dioxide removal. But these processes are very expensive as of now. They cannot be brought mainstream because of the economic unviability, right? So many more articles are going to come in the newspaper. So we will be discussing about this particular issue as and when we get articles in the newspaper more and more in the future. So this was all about the today's discussion. Thank you so much.